Nigeria woke up to a courtroom earthquake on Friday, February 27, 2026, and this one hit straight at the heart of the country's former power structure. Picture this. A man who once held one of the most powerful offices in the land, a man who, for nearly 8 years, sat at the center of Nigeria's legal machinery under former President Muhammadu Buhari, a senior advocate of Nigeria, a former Attorney General of the Federation, walking confidently into a federal high court in Abuja with his wife and son beside him, and then walking out in handcuffs. That man is Abubakar Malami. By the end of the court session, not only was he ordered back to prison, but so were his wife, Hajiya Bashir Asebi, and his son, Abdulaziz Malami. In a twist few saw coming, a family that had recently secured bail found themselves headed straight back behind bars, and the legal reasoning behind it has set the entire political space buzzing. Let's slow this down because what happened inside that courtroom was not ordinary. The case revolves around a 16-count amended charge filed by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission. The allegations: money laundering and unlawful acquisition of assets totaling over 8.7 billion naira. That's not pocket change. That's the kind of figure that instantly grabs headlines and keeps investigators busy for years. Back in early January, specifically January 7, 2026, the Malami family had scored what many believed was a significant legal win. Justice White of the Federal High Court granted bail to Malami, his wife, and his son. The conditions were heavy: 500 million naira each, submission of landed property documents, surrender of travel passports. Tough, but not impossible. They met every condition. They perfected the bail. They walked out legally. By procedure, everything checked out. For many watching the case, it seemed like the usual rhythm of high-profile trials in Nigeria: arrest, dramatic headlines, bail granted, long legal battle ahead. But then the fire moved. The case was reassigned. And that's where the drama exploded. The matter landed before Justice Joyce Abdul Malik at the Federal High Court in Maitama, Abuja. Fresh courtroom. Fresh proceedings. Fresh interpretation of the law. Malami's lead counsel, Joseph Daudu, SAN, a respected legal heavyweight, rose to make what many thought was a straightforward request. He argued that the Federal High Court is one court across Nigeria. Since bail had already been granted and perfected under a judge of competent jurisdiction, it should simply continue. No need to reinvent the wheel. But Justice Abdul Malik saw it differently. In a ruling that instantly shifted the mood in the courtroom, she held that once a case is reassigned and fresh proceedings begin before a new judge, previous proceedings, including bail, do not automatically carry over. In her view, the earlier bail effectively ceased to exist once the matter moved to her court. Just like that. No carryover. No automatic continuation. Fresh court, fresh bail application. And until that fresh bail is filed, argued, and granted, back to custody. The order came down firmly. Malami and his son were to be remanded at the Kuch Correctional Center in Abuja. His wife was to be taken to the Suleja Medium Security Correctional Center in Niger State. From freedom to confinement again, not because they failed bail conditions, not because new evidence was introduced that morning, but because of a legal technicality tied to judicial reassignment. That single ruling changed everything. For supporters of the former Attorney General, it felt like an aggressive legal stance. For critics, it signaled that the era of big men immunity might truly be fading. For neutral observers, it was a reminder that the courtroom can be unpredictable, especially in politically sensitive cases. And this is only one part of the storm. Running parallel to the EFCC prosecution is an entirely separate 5-count charge brought by the Department of State Services. This one raises even heavier concerns: alleged terrorism financing and illegal possession of arms. It was this DSS case that created one of the most surreal scenes in recent legal history. On the very day Malami perfected his EFCC bail and stepped out of custody, DSS operatives reportedly rearrested him almost immediately. Imagine stepping out of prison gates thinking you're free, only to be taken back into custody before the dust even settles. That moment changed public perception. What many initially saw as a corruption case began to look far more layered and politically sensitive. Now the witness list in the EFCC trial reads like a blueprint of a financial investigation. Anti-graft investigators, bank officials, property brokers, currency traders. When you hear that combination, you know prosecutors are aiming to trace paper trails, accounts, transfers, asset purchases, ownership structures. It suggests the case will rely heavily on documents, transactions, and financial mapping rather than just testimony. And here's where it gets deeply symbolic. For 8 years, Malami was Nigeria's chief law officer. He supervised federal prosecutions. He shaped legal policy. He influenced major national cases. His critics often accused him of protecting powerful allies. His defenders insisted he upheld the law as he interpreted it. Now he stands on the other side of the courtroom, not directing prosecutions, but defending himself against them. That image alone carries weight. Politics aside, this is a moment many Nigerians are processing carefully. Some see accountability finally touching the highest levels. Others suspect political undertones. In Nigeria, the intersection of law and politics has always been complicated. High-profile trials often carry both legal and political consequences, whether openly acknowledged or not. The next critical date is March 6, 2026. That's when fresh bail applications will be argued before Justice Abdul Malik. That's when we'll see whether the Malami family walks out again pending trial or remains behind bars as proceedings begin in full. And once trial proper starts, that's when the real battle begins: evidence versus rebuttal, documents versus denials, prosecution narrative versus defense strategy. Will the court uphold strict judicial independence and deliver a verdict purely on evidence? Or will political calculations, past loyalties, present tensions, future ambitions subtly shape how this unfolds? And what about the alleged 8.7 billion naira in assets? If the prosecution proves its case, will those properties and funds be fully traced, seized, and returned to the Nigerian public? Or will the recovery process become its own legal marathon? No matter where you stand politically, one thing is clear: this is not an ordinary case. It involves a former Attorney General, multiple agencies, overlapping charges, and a courtroom decision that has already rewritten expectations. Nigeria's legal drama just entered a new chapter. And March 6th is only days away.